Well, there were over 45,000 divorces in Australia last year, and nearly half also involved kids. So what do children actually go through when their parents separate and divorce? James Jeffrey is an author and columnist for the Australian newspaper, and when he was 8 years old, his parents' marriage came to a very dramatic end. And now he has his own family, and James has been writing and reflecting on what happened back then. He's put it in a book.
Yes.
And he's with us to talk about it. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Welcome.
You grew up in suburban Sydney, James. Take us back to what it was like living with your warring parents. How bad did it get?
I got very pyrotechnic, but, you know, it's like any war. It begins a long time before the actual outbreak of hostilities. So as an 8-year-old, 7-year-old, you're a bit dim on some things. Like, kids pick up on so much, but, yeah, when it actually really fell apart, it still came as a surprise, despite all the evidence leading up to it. And there'd been a lot of, you know, there was a lot of shouting, the mysterious silences, and then, you know, a little bit of drama along the way. Dad was quite fond of the old wedding ring ricocheting down the hallway.
Wow.
He was always very responsible, though, and would collect it afterwards. So,
he had a flair for the dramatic.
Wasn't there a knife pulled at one point?
Yeah, there was a knife. But that was the added value part of it. That was the woman who realised Mum was in the process of stealing her husband. So Mum was like, you know, some people make the mistake of quitting their job and having nothing to go to.
Yeah.
Mum did not do that, so she was leaving one marriage, but she had the next one already lined up. But it got pretty melodramatic, and yeah, it got very colourful and
I thought you were
very
talking about an episode of Dynasty. It was like I mean, that's crazy.
Well, they stole a lot of our life for that show.
What you do describe is this bitterness between them that just continued even long after the divorce. And what effect did that have on you?
Oh, they really knew how to maintain the rage, and it was like, you know, in Dad's case, it was only softened decades later, and that's just because dementia started taking away some of the... That was the one silver lining, was he was able to start forgetting about some of that. But for decades, it was just... It was like it had just... It was like it had just happened, and they still had to get 1 point in over the other one. It was as though we were still at the family court, and, you know, even when I was aged, you know, in my mid-30s, it was like I was still going to have to choose which of my parents I was going to live with. So they were still fully engaged in this propaganda war. And,
well, that's the thing, though, because your book... your book's about how divorce negatively affects kids. Wouldn't it have been worse to stay in that really hostile environment with your parents at war?
Oh, totally. But what I've been exploring is that it's taken a long time to sort of reach this zen point with it. I mean, at the time, I became aware of the comedy value of a lot of what they did. It was very bitter, it was very acrimonious, but a lot of the horrible stuff they were doing directly to each other, so we were collateral damage a bit, but you're still aware that some of this was just... You just knew that at some point this is going to be really funny. Because Mum especially had very sort of Hungarian sense of melodrama, and she really... You know, she really flowered beautifully and terribly in the family court. Ultimately, it was the wrong theatre for her, but she really gave it a go. But eventually you reach that stage in life, especially when you become a parent yourself and you start to realise, get an inkling of the pressures that parents are under as well.
Can I say, and that's one thing I've discovered being a parent, which I never expected. I thought my whole childhood was behind me, that was it, I was a grown-up, it was 20, 30 years ago or more, and that's it. That was an old me in an old city in an old age and an old century. And it all just comes flooding back with your own kids, doesn't it? What does it, what does it sort of made you realise as a parent? Like, has it changed the way you raise your kids? I mean, I know I spoil my son rotten now because I'm determined to be, the uber dad. So it's like, my father left home as I was 6 years old. Here's another Millennium Falcon.
Don't you kiss your wife quite a bit in front of your kids, which is really lovely?
It's just relentless wall-to-wall pashing. It's one of the things that I find very important is like, while I understand now that a lot of what my parents did in their own hilarious way was, the underlying motive was love. They just went about it in a funny way. And I'm sure one day my kids will grow up and look at us the same way. But I want my kids to see the love flowing between their parents. They'd like to see a little less.
Do you think divorce happens too easily in this country? Because I know that you're speaking about your history in quite a funny, jovial way, and you've had time, I suppose, to put that right in your head.
Yeah.
But Carolyn Overington, a very good friend of yours and a colleague of yours at The Australian, wrote a terrific piece about divorce negatively affecting kids and how it gets pretty nasty in divorce courts. In fact, judges have been murdered, kids, you know, have been killed, men take their lives. It's pretty nasty.
But the year after my parents' divorce wrapped up, the old family court was actually bombed.
Yeah.
And it was a terrible building too, because it was it was not designed for the purpose, and it was too small, and there were only a couple of lifts. So you sometimes had judges in the sharing a lift with people whose cases they were hearing. The meeting rooms were too small and they'd overflow, so you'd often have solicitors talking with their clients within earshot of the hostile other party.
Do you think
it was just a bad place?
Do you think people are too quick to divorce now and too quick to engage hostilities? Like in days gone by, there would have been a lot of people who would have not particularly been fond of their partner, or might have fallen out of love with them, or might have given them the ears, but they'd sort of stick with them for the sake of the kids and stiff up a lip and tally-ho and all that. Do you think now it's like, well, he doesn't fulfil me spiritually and emotionally and psychologically, and so I need to find my own happiness?
You're always going to have some people who are just far too quick off the mark, but yeah, the other sort who let's stick together for the sake of the children, which can be a catastrophe as well. But the one novel approach I saw years ago, I was travelling in Transylvania, and there was this medieval church, and next to it there was this series of low but very solid huts, and I was, what are they about? And it was for couples who wanted to get divorced. They'd be locked in there together for I think 2 weeks. And they'd get fed through a slot. But, you know, if when they came out of there, if they hadn't got their act together, if they still wanted to get divorced, then they were told, yeah, go for it.
James, that thing about showing love to your wife, I love that. And it's actually contained in your book, in your 21 rules of life. That you think are the rules to the life.
I like to think of them as surfing suggestions.
All right. Because I took a quick look at number 18. Do you know what number 18 is?
Let it rip.
See Bronwyn Bishop's hair in person and marvel anew at our species' capacities.
It is a great thing. Once upon a time, this is a faintly work-related thing, but one of our photographers, Renee Novataga, was following her around Queen Victoria building. People were queuing up to, you know, just bestow their love and on her and shake her hand. And I was her handbag carrier, so I kept walking into people because my eyes were fixed on that perfect hair.
So there you go.
It is
beautifully put. And can I say, anyone who wants to read anything James Jeffrey writes in The Australian and this book, you are the most exquisite writer, and it's amazing, incredibly funny and incredibly insightful.
Yep,
So
and you can get it
lovely,
now.
and
It's called My Family and Other Animus. And thank you so much for joining us on the show. We do appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on.
James Jeffrey, everyone. Okay, still to come, we are about to get sparkling with $7 million worth of diamonds. They're the world's most perfect and expensive examples, and they come with their own security guards. So no running off with them, Angela Bishop. And in a moment, the big honour for a music legend. We're opening the showbiz file in just a sec. You're watching Studio 10.